All right, Hank. So today we are going to talk about alternative investments, right?
Yes, I think I think that would be a good start. Only because there are those of us who think we know, or there are those who don't know, or at least they hear the terminology and aren't able to put a finger on what that might mean for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do you think believes alternative investments are when they hear that word?
Um, I think most people don't really know. I think, or it might be either they're just looking at stocks and bonds,
Mhm.
and they may include real estate in that. But it's it's stocks, it's bonds, it's hedge funds, it's venture capital, it's private equity, it's managed futures, it's art, it's antiques, it's in commodities, it's in derivatives, it's precious metals, um,
Okay.
and there are pros and cons with each of those, and some are riskier than others.
Okay. All right. Um, so I think when I talk to people who aren't well versed in uh, alternative investing, they just they have no idea what alternative investing is. And so the best way that I can explain what alternative investing is that alternative investing typically consists of anything that is outside of the stock market and anything that's outside of traditional bonds.
Yes. Hmm.
That's the easiest way I could explain it. Um, so if it's outside of the stock market, it's outside of traditional bonds, and it's also outside of quote unquote cash. Um, access to cash, right?
Hmm.
But the reason that we're bringing up alternative investing is its key role in where today's economy is when it comes to inflation.
Wow. And Leland, I think for the last couple weeks, the word inflation is getting people um, paranoid or anxious, and they hear someone says that, hey, uh, it's it's right now it's 6.2%, and if infrastructure deal passes, and if BQ passes or what have you, it's going to drive inflation even higher. And whoa, 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 whoa is me.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like everybody else. The first time I hear inflation, I pause, I take a deep breath and go, how might that impact me? How will that affect me? And for most people, most everyday people, they see it. If you've got a car, you see it immediately when you go to the gas station.
Yeah. Yeah. But well, before we talk about that, I mean, you
Hmm.
mentioned that inflation is at six and a quarter, right? So six
Hmm.
point two five. Okay.
Hmm.
So inflation's at six and a quarter. What does that mean? Because there are still some people that are like, okay, who cares? I don't know what the hell that means to me. It just means
Hmm.
that there's a number that's ticking. What does that really, really, really mean for the average consumer as we go along the holidays?
Um, I look at it. I look at it like this: if if you went to the store and you bought a candy bar, or you bought a cup of coffee or a pop or glass of milk or a dozen eggs, and they cost $1, whatever that was, it cost $1 two
Okay.
weeks ago. A 6.2% increase or inflation would now cost $1.06.
$1.06 for the same candy bar,
Yeah.
huh? Okay.
Yeah, I know that it's more complex than that, but I think for most of us, we just need to know what does that really mean to us.
Yeah.
Okay. And and I was listening to something yesterday where the federal government is 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 has written a letter to the oil industry, gas and oil industries to say, yo, I need you to tell me what it is that's happening in your industry to drive gas prices up 60% within the last couple months.
Well, so you said the federal government is requesting people to tell them what's happening in their industries.
Yeah.
Okay,
What,
that's different. That's odd, but okay.
yeah. Well, and again, I don't approach it from the way you approach it, but it's the idea that I got to go someplace.
Yeah.
I pull up to the pump and, and I take a deep breath and went like, oh, a few months ago, I filled up and it was $35.
Well, yeah,
Now I fill up is $50.
yeah. I filled up a week ago, and it was $75 at the pump.
What, how many gallons in your tank? But that's right. You have to use that high. I just use the 87. You probably using 93.
Yeah. So so knowing that, but just kind of go back to what you're saying.
Hmm.
About a month before that, when I also had to fill up for the same vehicle, it was around 55 dollars, right?
Hmm.
And so that goes to show it was an added 15-20 bucks just to fill up the same car.
Hmm.
And but how does that really impact others? Like, why is that still even important?
I think for me, two ways. First is the shock effect,
Okay.
and then two, it gets people's attention who drive a lot because
Okay.
now it's they've got to take that in your case they have to take that 20 dollars a week out
Hmm.
of the normal budget. So
Right.
that's now anywhere from 80 to $100 a month just for gas. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
And eventually it gets your attention. So then we may now not either one not drive as much, or we might take public transportation, or we may go to work with catch a ride with our buddy. We're not going to call Uber or Lyft because that might not help the situation, or um, we just bite that bullet.
Yeah. So, and I'm gonna basically say the same thing that you said. Just wanted to paint the picture a little more for people. So, if it's costing you 20 bucks more to get the same amount of fuel that it has in the past, and if you
Hmm.
are someone that has an income that is quote unquote predictable or fixed, therefore it
Hmm.
doesn't change that often, then that would mean that that additional 20 bucks would have to stem or come from some other place.
Correct.
So
Hmm.
that means that someone may now have to go into quote unquote debt, right? A credit card or something like that to get that
Hmm.
same amount of utility. So sorry, in economics we call things utility. All right.
Right.
So to get the same utility, that level of utility doesn't get you a better return on something that you have, though. So if I'm having to pay, if I'm having to pay more for my shirt,
Hmm.
um, this shirt, because it costs more, doesn't give me a better benefit because it costs more.
and it and just because it costs more doesn't mean that in absolutes it's greater value.
Absolutely. However, one of the assumptions that's in the economy is that if something does cost more, that well,
Ah.
that's the assumption, right? So
Yes.
now, because of, because the truth is, we've had so you follow me with that train of thought,
I mean, it smacked me in the face.
right? So now, because it's not really about inflation. What this is really about is hyperinflation,
Okay. Okay.
right? Because we all can agree that inflation has been consistent of about 2% every year. Therefore, the idea is that if someone has a salaried employee, that hopefully they also would be able to go along with inflation, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has been in talks for over 3 or 4 decades. The issue today is hyperinflation, where you're expected to have that 2% increase, but now you're having 6% increase.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a big difference.
Now, but Leland, part of the some of the discussion, or part of the discussion has been it's because the federal government did something or didn't do something,
Okay.
and then so you said okay that's probably true. Someone's going to get blamed, but then you read that part of the problem is a byproduct of COVID-19.
Oh, really? Okay. Help,
Okay.
help, help me understand that one.
Well, because of COVID, people started to shut down. You're no longer working, so manufacturing was affected, farming was affected, automobile, all of the industries that rely on labor were affected, impacted because people were not free to come and go,
Okay.
which then had a direct impact on supply and demand.
Correct. Gotcha.
And because of the global pandemic, goods and services were not able to flow freely without additional safeguards.
Okay. Fine. All right. I'll take that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So then now we've got ship after ship after ship, or vessel after vessel after vessel, super tanker after super tanker after super tanker, backed up at ports that already had a limited capacity.
Okay. So
So,
okay.
mhm.
So which factor? I mean, what do you think it led to this hyperinflation? Because
all
I'll be honest, Hank. I don't
mm,
think that the hyperinflation is really truly tied to stimulus checks.
no, I don't. that's
And
that's
here's
my that's my that's my point.
here's why. I think so.
Okay, I'm
Anyone
with you.
anyone who has studied economics, like has actually studied economics, and anyone who understands how America, like, okay, I want you guys to think about this. We all know that America's value of the dollar has been decreasing since 1933. We
Hmm.
also know that well, maybe people don't know the way that America keeps the dollar's value, quote unquote, valuable, is that we, as the government, talking about the collective, um, put other countries in debt. So, in other words, if I put another country indebted to me, but my value is going, there you go, absolutely,
My
right?
value goes up.
Absolutely. So, the value of your country is positive, but because your country owes me money,
Hmm.
I'm able to be seen as, stay afloat, and I'm also able to have my currency still circulate in the worldwide
Well,
economy.
and
So,
our currency. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
go ahead, go ahead. I'll do it after your.
Well, we start to take a look at which currencies are negotiable in any country.
Correct.
And the US dollar is one of those. The British pound is another. I think maybe the French franc, I forget what else, but the ruble isn't, the Chinese yuan isn't,
Yeah.
the real isn't, the Italian lira mm,
No.
might be.
No.
I think there were only six. There might be seven.
Yeah. Well.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the way that currencies work, right? How they
Hmm.
trade is what that means is that, let's say it's six. Like, for example, there are six primary ones that can be easily traded throughout the world. That would mean that the other, what is it? How many countries is it? 56, something like that, or 76?
It might be more because they keep popping up every day. They
Okay.
decide
Let's
I'm, mhm.
let's
But
call it.
let's say it's 60. Let's
Okay,
say
let's say
60.
60. Fine.
Let's say
Then
65.
the
Yeah.
remaining 54, out of the remaining 54, maybe about 10% or 20% of those remaining 54 is dropping in value.
Correct.
Therefore, depending on which one the U.S. is leveraged heavily on, that's what's causing that. Give you another example. In Argentina, what's happening with their currency?
It's being devalued.
It's devalued so much that
It's worth nothing, pretty much.
it's worth anything. The people who actually work and live in Argentina, they will shoot you if you pay them wages in their country's
The
currency.
currency. Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So the pandemic per se, the giving of the stimulus checks, that's not the hyperinflation. That's probably more propaganda. And I'll tell you why it's not the hyperinflation.
Okay.
Right now, anyone can Google how much money the Federal Reserve prints per second,
Billions.
and that's per second.
Billions.
Okay.
Now, some of it is replacement for what's in circulation, but some of it is new money.
Yeah, it's new money.
New money.
It's
Okay.
new money.
Yeah.
So therefore, there was already surges of new money being put into the economy.
Mhm.
The only thing that was different was that it was going to households instead of going to other governments,
Or going to
military.
big business, or going to big businesses. When you reduce the tax
Hmm.
from 28 to 21%,
Okay.
that put more bottom line to those corporations. And then what those many of those corporations did was, because they have more quote cash in the bank,
Hmm.
they bought back shares of stock that individuals had, that made the value of their companies a greater value now for their company, because they did not have a debt load.
Right. It propped it up, and equity seemed better than it was. But
But
the only
like you and I, the money we get, we put it immediately back into the what?
market into
Back in the
investments.
market.
But
Investments or goods and services.
yeah, but the only thing with someone propping up their share prices is we also know that for many or all or whatever of the uh, of them are actual banks,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in which it's the bank is part of the bank or the Federal Reserve's job is to keep circulation, and the banks help it. So, but before I get too deep into that, I don't want to confuse anyone. Here's what I want to say. We understand that alternative investments are a necessity when it comes to hedging, fighting against, protecting against inflation. All right.
Okay. Yes, it is.
So
That's absolutely correct.
you then have to figure out, well, what qualifies as investments. I'm going to give you guys a list of alternative investments that I prefer. All right. Now this is personal choice.
Mm-hmm.
You can take note. You have private debt, and I'll explain them after I go through them real quick. After I list them, private debt, private equity, venture capital, REITs. You have collectibles. You have what's considered real assets. You have quote unquote structured products.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about that. You have art, as you mentioned earlier. You have
Mm-hmm.
EFTs. You do technically have cryptocurrency. I'll touch on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
You have what's called impacted investing. You have commodities, and then ultimately you have the ability for hedge funds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So private debt. Quickly touch on that. Private debt simply just means that someone, let's say that Bob wants to invest in real estate. You happen to have, let's say Bob wants to invest in real estate, and Matt happens to have $200,000 in his IRA account. He has a special IRA account.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay. I see where you're going.
And so he says, hey, I want to get into real estate. And so Matt says, you know what? I'm willing to finance your real estate venture at 70%, and I will give you a private loan, a private debt,
Mm-hmm.
short-term loan you pay me 8% interest, right? That
Mm-hmm.
loan itself becomes a actual asset for Matt. It becomes a liability um, for the young man who's investing, and then that young man is going to pay interest, make interest payments or payments, whatever else, on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
What you're going to find out for the alternative investments is that what makes them beneficial is they have to have the ability to provide some type of coupon, right? So investing or economics, whenever an asset is paying you a return that is quote unquote consistent, we call that a coupon, right?
Okay. Okay.
What the reason why stocks are not on this list is because stocks don't pay you coupons.
They may not pay you anything.
It may not pay you anything. So someone
Mm-hmm.
might say, "Well, I get dividends." You may get a dividend. I don't know. You may get a dividend, and you may not. It depends on the governance and what they choose as far as a corporation, whether or not to give you dividends.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't always know exactly what that percentage would be. So that private debt, that private loan, gives a coupon every single month, right? Private
Mm-hmm.
equity, similar. So if you're owning a business or you have ownership of a business, but it has to be a small business, and
Mm-hmm.
you can structure your deals to where you can get paid quarterly, monthly, or annually, and that again is considered coupons. Your coupons are designed. Your coupons, right, are designed not to take away from your initial principal that is within that investment. So,
Okay, I follow.
so if I invest $10,000 into a local business in my community, and I structured the deal to where I will receive monthly or quarterly payments. Those quarterly payments do not eat into my initial $10,000 that I have invested. Right.
Correct. Correct.
So then you have venture capital. Venture capital is ultimately is nothing more than private equity, but with a twist, and it has a lot more risk to go with it. But they typically still looking for equity investments, but for higher returns, but definitely for higher risk. You get a lot more losses there. REITs just stand for Real Estate Investment Trust. Okay, um, this is more or less where people put together their money into a pool. It can be a blind pool or a designated asset pool for return. And you typically are going to get smaller returns, smaller coupons, um, but it's it's in conjunction with other people involved, right? Collectibles, you guys know about that. So getting a coupon with a collectible isn't necessarily about you having a baseball card. Let's say I have this card here, right? And I'm going to trade it with someone else. Not necessarily that. That's not really what they're talking about. What they're really saying when it comes to it being an alternative investment that gives a coupon would be if this is an artifact, if this is a collectible, if this is a car, or this is a baseball card, I could possibly take this card and lease it, rent it out to a museum or to an exhibit in which the museum or the city or the whoever the foundation, whatever, will pay me money monthly, yearly, weekly to hold my card, my collectible, right?
Excuse me.
That's what they're talking about. I think people get confused when they hear the word collectible. They think, oh, so all I gotta do is collect baseball cards, or all I gotta do is collect these we call them widgets, right? And collect
Mm-hmm.
widgets, and I'm gonna be fine. It's like no, 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 no. You would have to have it structured to where that you're making money as far as
Mm-hmm.
investment, getting a return off of you having that collectible. Um, go ahead, Hank. Go ahead. I'm
I,
sorry.
I was thinking. Excuse me. I was thinking. Many of those devices, those methods that you talked about. Any ideas to what percentage of the U.S. populace
Woo.
participate?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So typically in alternative investments, you only have about 15% of the population that's actually taking advantage of it.
So those are normally the folk who got really deep, well, considerably deep pockets, or they've got um, some form of cash reserve, some liquidity that allowed them to do that.
They've got liquidity. They also have a few different, and I don't even, because it's not liquidity. You don't have to have a large amount of liquidity to do these things. You would have to have a different mindset, though.
Ah, you know what? We've talked about mindset at least three different times, sir.
Yeah, you would have, because here's the thing:
Hmm.
if you do have a baseball card, let's say you have, I have some collectible cards too for myself, right?
Hmm.
And one of them is like a vintage Terrell Owens card when he was with, the the Cowboys, right? And it's worth some money because of the way it's holographed and all that stuff. So just because I'm holding it, it may have value. You can probably, maybe you do want to put it on a balance sheet, but it's not bringing you money in, right?
Correct.
The only
Hmm.
way
Hmm.
I'll be able to have that bring me money is I would have to allow, I would have to quote unquote lease out that card,
Or
maybe.
sell it.
Or, well, here's the thing. I want people to understand. When you sell the asset, that's a one-time thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm.
But once you sell it, that doesn't continue to bring you income. If you
Ah.
sell something, but you have structured a deal to where there's a contract agreement to give
Hmm.
money at every single whatever month, that's different. But if you just sell, if I sell this book,
Ah. Okay.
you
Okay.
got me,
And all too often, what people do is they have something of value. What do they do with it?
they sell it. But I want people to understand something. The reason I'm like, well, don't do that is because once you sell it, I know people are like, well, hey, I got some liquid. But once you sell it, you pay tax on it, and you're going to pay the highest tax because you sold it.
Mm. Hmm.
You'll pay
Hmm.
less tax in this example with the base card by leasing it out to a collector who wants to, I don't know, have a road show about collectible cards. You pay less money that way, as far from a tax, from a tax, and
So,
it now is considered passive income.
see, you just brought up. We started with the I word, inflation or interest, and now you've brought another word that either people don't fully understand or they ignore, and that word is taxes. Because most things that we're talking about, all of these alternative investments have tax implications depending on what you do when and or what you do how. Okay.
Yeah,
So I don't mention taxes for people to be afraid of, but there are tax implications on much of what we do when we look for investments.
there are.
So then we have to figure out how do we not avoid, because the big guys are able to avoid because they got high price attorneys and accountants and they got somebody else managing all of that and they got ways to manipulate. But what we have to do is to find a way to reduce our tax burden, our tax liability, legally. Okay. um, and most people don't know how to do that.
And what I would say is that I mean, Hank, you were listening to a call I think last week when I was talking to some ladies in reference to flipping a property, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And they were very adamant about doing that, and I had to make sure that they one took the excitement out and
Hmm.
actually put it on paper.
Hmm.
And as long as you're putting your investment on paper, at least you start with that. You put your investment on paper. But when they got to the net profit, I wanted to make sure that they understood that although it's going to say a net profit of, let's say, $70,000 as an example,
Hmm.
that they understand that because they're flipping a property, they're going to pay capital gains on the $70,000, and that's if it's structured properly with it being a special type of LLC, right?
Hmm.
So now they're going to pay 33% or maybe 40% based on, I guess, what the current administration does in the future. But they're gonna pay 30 to 40% for it on capital gains. So if you're only going to obtain about $30,000 or $35,000, but it's taking you uh, 6 months to flip that property, was that worth the investment?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are there other alternatives that you could do to get a $30,000 return within 6 months without having to front load a $200,000 investment?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Right?
and and I was appreciative that you broke that down and explained some of those nuances of deal making with her. And I know that you didn't do all of them, but I think you presented her with enough that they needed to go out and do some research and not totally rely on you to be the font of all knowledge.
Yeah.
And I say that because I was reading something about just about human nature, and one of the things that I came to realize was that there are people who will who will grasp, hold on to every word that you say, and in the process, because of emotionalism, okay, they make some emotional decisions without doing any personal research.
Mhm.
And then they'll come back and say, well, you said, and you may have said, but the meaning or the interpretation was over here someplace that they didn't pick up on because they heard what they wanted to hear. And so again, I just thought that was just it was neat. And I could hear the excitement on possibilities. Then when reality started to set in based on what you were telling them, then all of a sudden they go, oh, okay, okay, I see, I understand. Now, and I know that all too often there are those who, once the fish is hooked,
Reel it in.
when they snap, and the fish may have swallowed the bait, but they didn't have the right type of hooks in the bait. And so when they pull it out, what do?
Slip.
They pull everything back out because it's not anchored properly. So if that makes any sense to people who are not
People might be wondering, but I understand exactly what you're saying.
absolutely. So
I want
so
to I,
please.
I want to make sure that I don't veer too far from um, that part of collectibles though. I don't
Hmm.
want
Hmm.
people to think that, like, once again, if you got Canadian coins that are gold or silver, whatever, great, but that's not going to bring you any income, right? So the next one on the list was real assets. Real assets just means something that's tangible. Okay,
Hmm.
assets. It can be precious metals. It can be collectibles. It can
Hmm.
be real estate,
Hmm.
etc. Structured products include things like CDOs. And Hank, you and I know about CDOs because in 2006, 7, and 8, they had credit default swaps
Hmm.
or collateralized debt obligations.
Hmm.
Right? And all that was for everyone else, those were agreements of paper, aka mortgages, oftentimes that were being traded, and they were able to get coupons off of those mortgages. So, for
Hmm.
example, there was a stack of mortgages that had a value of, let's say, $12 million. They might
Hmm.
purchase those mortgages for $6 million, right? So that's a 50% value. All right. But the coupon or the monthly interest and payments that comes off of all those mortgages, it might be $1 million,
Right.
right? It might be a half a million, as an example. Okay, so that's how it becomes that alternative asset that doesn't take away from the principal investment. Real estate, I believe everyone understands how real estate works. Hopefully, we'll have to go on that into another day.
Another topic, right?
Cryptocurrency.
Woof.
Here's my thing with cryptocurrency. And I was talking to a lady. Um, I was talking to a lady within a community. She's a smart business lady, and I just said, if cryptocurrency is as valuable as many say, why would I willingly exchange my cryptocurrency for your cash? If,
Mm,
if I had a new car, if I
mm.
a new if I bought a new Honda Accord and the new Honda Accord has all the bells and whistles, and I tell you that my new Honda Accord, because it has all the bells and whistles, is better than your old Honda Accord, why would I ever exchange my new Honda Accord for your old Honda Accord? Right?
Hmm.
So my one of my concerns with crypto is if it's as valuable as people say, why ever exchange for it? One of the things that it gets value from is based on how much someone is willing to pay for it, right? It's not like a regulated value for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Typically for currencies, what happens though? Currencies, there is a regulated value for currencies.
Correct.
That's why I can't really say that cryptocurrency is a currency.
Well, actually, the federal government, U.S. government, I don't know about others, and I think China is looking at outlawing all cryptos and only do
They already done
Chinese.
it. They
Okay.
already did it. It's banned.
Well, the federal government is looking at U.S. government is looking at cryptos, probably from a lot of ways, but one of the ways is they want to make certain that a lot of dark money is not happening in crypto market, and they want to be able to tax the capital gain. If someone bought a Bitcoin for $200 20 years ago, I'm exaggerating, and it's now at 67,000, and they sell one. Uncle Sugar is saying, "Hey, you just made a 60-some thousand dollar capital gain. I want my share." So people are getting a little bit interesting, but Leland, I look at my naivete has me looking at cryptos as I did stock the stock market years ago, because I think in my business class or econ class years ago was that you invest in the stock market
Okay.
only if it's money that you could afford to lose.
Yeah.
That was the thought process back then. And I
Well,
look at, mhm, go ahead.
no, I'll say, and the thing I want to add is that China has banned crypto.
Hmm.
Um, and I want people also to think about if China, so we all agree that China has a large economy, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So wouldn't that be more of a pilot? So if China has the ability to ban crypto for being used, what would stop other countries from doing the same?
Nothing.
Nothing.
So if
Because
mhm,
because what China was figuring out was not only was it having an environmental impact, like crypto,
negative,
a negative
negative
impact,
by right.
but it was also affecting the value of their own currency.
Hmm.
So if you have a currency where your entire government is based off of, why would you willingly entertain? It would be as if, for example, my wife, she's a big Chris Paul fan. Okay, so she
Hmm.
told me, she said if Chris Paul asked her on a date, she would say yes.
Even though
So
she's married.
even though she married.
Yeah.
So no,
Oh
so
yeah.
knowing that, I would
I,
never invite Chris Paul over for dinner,
well, I
right?
love me some. I love me some Beyonce.
Right. So therefore,
You're right.
you wouldn't invite Beyonce to your house for dinner, right?
I would, but my wife wouldn't.
Correct. So what I'm saying is the house, the house, quote unquote, in the dinner stage is China. And if you
Right.
know that if you know that your currency is being lowered from your guest, aka cryptocurrency, why
Hmm.
would you allow it?
But see again, part of the hype, the sensationalism, the emotionalism is, oh man, it's $67,000. It was $50,000 3 months ago,
Hmm.
and everybody's going like, whoa. But I can't sell you my crypto.
Not in China. I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail for $60,000.
No, so there are more and more. In fact, You had me to take a look at Metaverge,
Yep,
and
metaverse,
you had me to look at
NFTs.
NFTs.
Which, let me say this, but before you get on that, I do
Yeah.
believe that cryptocurrency is the future. But I also believe that Bitcoin is a pilot program.
Well, actually, I
China,
was talking. I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and I went online and I printed out a list of the 50 largest make is not the proper term, but the 50 largest because of valuation. Bitcoin 67,000.
hmm
Ether, whatever it is almost 5,000. Some on the list are 25 cents.
correct.
So I was saying to my daughter, I said, I got some money that I could afford to just float. So somewhere on that list, I might find. I figure for 25 cents, if I put $1,000 into that I'll just put and let it ride.
hmm
If it gets to 67,000 a coin, I know I'm being futuristic. That would be a nice little nest egg for my great grandkids or grandkids. Not for me.
Okay.
Okay. So I think personally, most of the people who are buying big, who are investing heavily into the crypto industry are individuals who either bought early or they're buying early. And when the price goes up, because we don't know when someone sells, we know when they buy, but we don't know when they sold something. So what they're doing, in my mind, is that they are playing the market. They get in, they push the price up, and then they take their stuff out.
So, okay, all that is accurate. So much accurate to where there was something called, I think it was 2 weeks ago, called Squid Coin. Did you hear about that? Squid Coin.
No.
So there was a movie. There's a movie that came out on Netflix about a month ago called The Squid Games.
Squid, SQUID.
Yep, yep. Squid.
Okay.
So about a week or so after Squid Games was released, someone, because here's the thing, when it comes to the creators of these coins, they're often anonymous people. You don't know who they are. So no one knows who invented Bitcoin.
Really?
Yes. No one knows, it's a pen name, as a matter of fact. It's not a real person, so no one knows who invented Bitcoin. So people are able to create these coins and you not know who the hell they are. And keep in mind, the coins aren't based off of anything outside of how much someone else is willing to pay for
Wouldn't pay for it. Yeah.
it. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
the coin technically is worth $0, but Billy was willing to pay $10 for it, so they give it that ticker of $10 because that was the highest amount that someone wanted to pay for it. That's where that's coming from.
That's
Okay.
crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. So what happened was they made this guy. Well, we don't know. This Twitter account made Squid Coin. Okay, and you could buy in. I want to say it started like on a Wednesday night. You could have got in at 0.000000125. All right, and by Friday night, it had got to about $300 per coin.
Wow.
By Sunday evening, it had got to about $1,000 or $2,000 per coin.
Because it's a new hot thing.
It was a new hot thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it had the name of a popular movie, right, that had went out. And that movie was primarily watched by millennials too, millennials and Gen Zs, whatever. So then, what was happening, however, was that people were able to purchase the coin from the creator, okay,
Mm-hmm.
whom you don't know, and whom you could only get in contact with by you tweeting them on Twitter. And then you weren't able to resell your coin. So although it showed, that's right, although it showed a price ticker of $2 grand per coin,
Mm-hmm.
you weren't able to sell your coin.
Rec-
You couldn't get out of the market, and
That's
then
that's
and then
crazy.
well, that's the truth. I mean,
No,
not
I believe you. I'm saying that's
everything.
crazy. But you don't know what you don't know. You just decide to jump. There are alligators in that pond. You
So
know.
I look at that's why I'm saying I can't really call it a currency.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
It's
that's
more
right. They call it cryptocurrency, but yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it's more collectible because your currency is regulated and you're able to actually sell your currency and utilize it worldwide normally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, based on based on hey, what you want to do. It's your money. With crypto, you're regulated. What I was going to say is that China has already let its citizens know that they are making their own coin.
Mm-hmm.
America is making their own coin, Hank. I don't know if you know that. Do you know that?
No, I wasn't aware. What's it called?
Right, so, can you see my screen? Hold on, let's see. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Hold on, it's coming up. I guess it's loading. And I'm just so surprised
Fed
that
coin. Okay.
that people just aren't aware of it because it's not hidden per se. You would just have to Google it. But all right, look, September 22nd, 2021, right? The Fed is pushing ahead with its study into whether to implement its own digital currency. Chairman
Mm.
Jerome Powell. It's going to
Yeah.
be called
Okay.
Bitcoin. And I don't want to let's not pretend they're not wondering. They are going to do it. The
They're
question
gonna
is,
do it.
yeah, the question is when. I don't. They're not going to. Anyone who's confused with that statement, you're delusional. It's not when.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not if. It's when.
It's when.
It's when.
Plus, Leland, I think there are just too many people enamored with the idea of cryptos that that having your own as a country, having your own and having your people and other people who believe in the stability of your company, your country, or what have you. Again, they will invest, and then you know that will to me that will have an impact on the quote dollar,
Well,
because this might replace the dollar.
no, not might. It is. But here's the thing. With cryptocurrencies, I want people to understand something that majority of countries have a central bank, correct?
Hmm.
Okay. And that central bank is governed by the Federal Reserve or their version of
Absolutely.
the Reserve. Okay. So
Hmm.
Hank, the coin is named Fed coin
Hmm. Duh.
because all these other banks, because all these other countries have their own version of a Federal Reserve.
That's right.
So don't you
The
think?
International Monetary Fund. Yeah.
So come on now. I mean, you don't have to be an astute chess player like me to figure out what the next move would be.
Wow.
It basically tells you. It tells you that you're going to have a Fed coin at some point, whether you like it or not. If you choose
Hmm.
not to use the Fed coin, we'll make it so that you can't use any other coin.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Well, and now let can we let's bring that back, because I was reading something where someone was able to use crypto to buy a real asset.
You sure
And I
can.
don't remember whether it was a house, because a car is not an asset, but they may have bought a car or a house. I think it may have been a house.
You
So
can you can buy anything you want, Hank, with crypto as long as the receiving end is willing to accept it.
which
So
is
if you want
which
to
is
sell your
crazy.
computer,
Hmm.
exactly. But
It's
what
crazy.
what regulates that, or something that would easily stop that, is if the government or the IRS said, that's not a legal form of exchange.
Okay.
Then
Okay.
what do?
You don't use it.
You don't use it. And
But if you have invested heavily in it, you up the creek.
absolutely. And this is the example that I was stating. I'm surprised people weren't aware of this. The whole squid coin thing. They don't know who made the coin. All they know is that the person out of thin air made $3.3 million.
Poof,
Yeah, seriously, just poof.
poof.
Okay, they don't know who made it. You can't even get in contact with the person after the person sold all the fictitious coins. The website disappeared, and the only
But
way
you,
you're able to get in contact with these people was through a Twitter account that blocked all communication. So you weren't even able to respond to the so-called Twitter account.
wow, Leland, can we? It's like, and I started to say it's futuristic, but no, that's here now. So if we go back to alternative investments, and we look at real assets, and we look at how do we hedge inflation or how do we hedge the stock market, then and be able to control whatever those assets are to the degree that you can, then your your options become less.
Yes, but I
So
want
when
to
we
I
Mhm.
want to say this though too. I'm not saying that cryptocurrency is not the future. It's the future. Cryptocurrency is going to happen. But what I just want people to know of is that cryptocurrency is is going to have to be based off of something, and
Mhm.
more than likely, it's going to have to be based off of something that is regulated,
Mhm.
unless you're able to create your own ecosystem to where
Mm.
you accept that. So, for example, with the metaverse that Facebook is creating, where people are going to log into a virtual headset and basically live in this virtual headset, where people are going to exchange their actual dollar for a Libra coin, aka a Facebook coin.
Mhm.
You will spend this Facebook coin, right,
Within that universe.
within that virtual reality universe, right?
Mm.
Well, that's
Mhm.
going to work because that's a virtual reality universe. That's a virtual economy. Facebook is now going to have to. Facebook is actually basically giving you game credit in exchange for your real dollar. Come on now,
Shrewd.
that's all it
Shrewd.
is.
Shrewd. That's shrewd.
That's true, right?
Yeah, it is shrewd.
So EFTs are the future. Cryptocurrency is the future. I would
Mhm.
just be cautious with believing that one coin over the other is going to be the particular quote unquote currency for the world. I'll be
Right.
very, very cautious in believing that. But yeah, is it the future? Absolutely. The currency that we're going to use on the world's platform, on the world's field, is not any of the cryptocurrencies that you see today. It's going to be a
Mm-mm.
cryptocurrency that comes out of a government. Uh,
Government.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So wow, that's an education. Even and I started to say even for me. I apologize. That's an education for me today, because I try to keep up with trends, but I mean they're coming at us at light speed, and if people either don't read or listen,
Hmm.
they're behind the power curve. And if you read and listen to the wrong thing, you're behind the power curve. So I don't want people to be paranoid. I just want them to be aware, aware that stuff is happening at such a rate of speed that it's impossible for you to stay current.
Yeah, it's
So
impossible.
I um so even though I said that I was looking at the possibility of investing in cryptos, but if they can ebb and flow as you just indicated with this with this example you just showed, then now that causes me to pause, to pump my brake on my initial idea of putting some money into quote just cryptos that have a fancy name, and because it is the flavor of the day.
It's
So I appreciate you for that.
and I
Um,
want to say this when we're talking about alternative investments. The idea there is that the alternative investment is going to give you a coupon.
right. Yeah.
Keep in
Right. Yeah.
mind that cash is not an alternative investment. Well, why is that? Because cash in itself does not give you a coupon
Mm-mm.
because it's a currency.
In fact, my bank just called me last week, and it says, "Mr. Hunt." I said, "Well, yeah, this is so and so and so and so from such and such and such place." Yeah, yeah. They said, "Well, we noticed that you haven't been in to the bank to have an asset um, um, discussion,
Evaluation.
evaluation, or what have you." And I'm going like, "No, I haven't." They said, "Well, we noticed that you got this and you got that and you got this and this hasn't moved. You haven't done that. We need to talk to you so that we can help you to better manage the what you got here with the bank." And I went like, "Dag." Now I can remember that, and I mean, Leland, I get offers from banks and entities and financial institutions and all this other stuff that 2 years ago I wasn't even a blip on their radar screen, and now they're reaching out to me. And again, for people who want to do business with us and they go to the website, there's a document that we ask them. There's a questionnaire, but then later on they will do something we call the 3C worksheet, and that's collateral, capital, and credit score.
Yeah,
Trust me, if you have those three, you can buy anything. And in fact, people will come offering you stuff, and you go like, "But I didn't ask. I mean, I don't need it. And when I needed it, they were nowhere to be found." So I guess the moral of that story is, if you're in a position to take advantage of some alternative investments, if you're in a position to want to hedge against high inflation, then I would it would behoove you to look at some alternatives and real assets, and then determine which one might be best for you. But perchance, if you're looking at a small business, investing in a small business, or investing in real estate, be it a single family up to apartment complex or hotel, give us a call. Give us a call because we can help you to navigate the landscape and make certain that we help you to create um, the entities that are necessary to ensure that you minimize your tax obligations or tax burdens or liabilities.
that's right.
Okay.
And
And at the end of the day, it's yours.
yes,
You can control it. And then if you wanted to, once you got that portfolio humming, then if you want to experiment, invest in some of the other assets or some of the other alternatives, then that might be a way to go for you rather than just launching into an alternative or launching into a real asset without having the necessary wherewithal to know that, hey, there are better options. um, what are your long-term goals? What are your short-term goals? What is it that you're trying to accomplish, Leland? Because I think a lot of people don't do something that is necessary, and that is plan. And if they're going to plan, then there are certain things that they need to do in the planning process. You know, they have to make certain that their plan, their goal, or what have you is measurable. That it has a certain timelines, that it's specific, all those other pieces. So I would say start with a plan, and then if you need some help with your plan, we can help you to talk through that as well. but it's got to start. And if you say, well, I'm going to wait until inflation either increases or until it decreases, or I find a crypto that's fully backed, or if I find this, that, and the other, he who hesitates is lost. And we just said, hey, give us a call. Let's talk. Because nothing ventured is nothing gained. I'm
That's
not,
it.
I'm just saying. We can talk about it all day. We can talk about it. And I can remember talking to a friend of mine, and he asked the question, and he said, "What do you?" He says, "Hank, what do you really want?" And until you know what you really want, then it's difficult for me to help you. And my feelings were hurt.
But it makes sense. I mean, how else can one help you?
I was being narrow-minded because I thought I had a plan, but my plan was not specific. It didn't have timelines, any of that other stuff. Okay, so there are some key pieces that's going on, and I may have mentioned way back when that for many of us, we are comfortable in our discomfort.
Mm.
Okay, as long as we can put gas in the car and keep the lights on and keep a roof over our head, we're fine. But and I know that a lot of people don't have insurance, health or life. A lot of people, if they needed to pay $300 for something today, right now, they don't have it.
Hmm.
A lot of people are leveraged to the hilt. A lot of people have credit card debt. They're having 5 or 6 cards, and all of them are maxed to the hilt.
Hmm.
They are not sleeping well at night. They get mail, and they're anxious of opening mail because for fear that somebody is asking them for something. And I'm not. Now there are those who say, "Well, this dude is exaggerating." Do the research and then call me. You know, and we want to be able to help people to start the process of getting from where you are to where you want to be. But you have to decide that there is a need, need. I'm a Southern guy. There is a need in your future, not a want, a need that's not being met.
That's right. And so, um, look at the comments. Go to salary2freedom.com, and I guess Hank, with that, we bid them all a good day, a adieu.
And I think it was a good wrap up, sir. Because we started there, but what we try to do each day, each time we talk, is to give you a call to action. Okay? Because at some point in time, you're going to have to decide. And we say, dig your well before you need your water.
That's right. That's right. That's it.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. See you on the other side.
See you on the other side.